Alright guys, you saw the unboxing and here's this kit all snapped up together. Once again, this is just out of box. I did glue some of the seams a little bit, but basically this is exactly how it's going to come out of the box. This is the Evangelion Mk-13 or Unit 13 or Daijūsangoki, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, this is the 13th Evangelion as seen in the Evangelion 3.0 film. As I've said before, I'm a huge Evangelion fan, and probably at the end of this review I might talk a little bit about just kind of my thoughts about the movie, just because I would want to, but I'll save that for the end just in case anyone who's not interested in hearing that can just watch the review first. So as you can see, the design of it is of course very tall and slender, and I think it's very accurate to how it appears in the film, so they've done a very good job at capturing I keep wanting to call it a mobile suit, the Eva itself. As you can also see, as just being an out-of-box build, this has a ton of great color separation. All the color apps are really nice. There's a few areas where the color is not the correct color it should be, but it's very few. If you're the kind of person who doesn't like to paint, or maybe wouldn't feel comfortable painting this is one of those kits that you could just snap it together as out of box, and you really don't need to paint it in order to get a really awesome looking kit. As far as the construction process went, there were times when the construction was actually a little bit difficult because of just it's very different from a normal Gundam, of course, but overall the construction was really enjoyable. Everything fit together very well. I'll talk a little bit more about that later because there's something I want to mention about the fit of the parts themselves. Alright, now I want to bring it up close to give you guys a closer look at this guy. Now, as you saw, if you watched the unboxing, you saw that these parts, a lot of these parts here on the head were pre-painted. So especially those eyes there, these little green color apps on the face. Here on the shoulder, this grayish black part in the center of that kind of diamond shape, that's pre-painted because that's all just the purple part, but the center gray part is painted. The green and the yellow are actually plastic pieces that you just pop into there, so those are really small. These red circles here on the front are just really tiny red pieces as well, super tiny, and there's a couple of even smaller red pieces on the alternate chest plate. We'll get to that in a bit, but as you can see, a lot of really nice detail. Everything fits together super well. As far as coming around to the front, not really a whole lot. The shoulder just doesn't really come out of the Eva very much. Moving down to the elbow, it does rotate at the elbow and bend as well. Just a single joint, so that is about as far as it's going to bend. Not very far. It would be nice if it would come up a little bit more, but one problem with Evangelion kits is the Evas by design don't really have a joint there. It's just one like solid arm. So of course to make that in a kit is kind of impossible, and in the older kits they tried to make that by making this kind of rubber piece with a joint inside. I never built one of those, but I don't think that probably didn't work out very well, especially I think that rubber probably deteriorated after a while. These joints I think are pretty good. They look pretty nice, but even still you're not going to get as much human-like movement as you would like to see from a robot that is supposed to be able to basically do everything a human body should do. Anyway, moving down to the wrist, it is a double joint, but as you can see, and as you're probably going to see a lot throughout this review, the hand is going to pop off a lot. There's just the ball joint there, and the hand is just going to fit on via that ball joint. But the hand sandwiches together. It's just two parts, and because it's not actually glued yet, that when you press the ball into there, it separates the plastic a little bit because of the force of it going in, and then that just makes it loose because the plastic's separated. So this is an issue that once you're actually finished with the kit, you glue this, and even painting on here will help as well, but a little bit of work once the kit is actually finished. It shouldn't really be much of an issue, but for now definitely the hands are very loose and they're probably going to pop off more throughout the review. Moving on to the torso, there are like 3 sections, I believe. The top part is one section, the middle part is one section, and then the like pelvic waist section is its own section. But where those connect, you don't really get as much bend as you would like. That's really about as far as it's going to bend. It's really not all that much at all. The problem is that up in the top here, and I'll just pull it off because it's going to come off, in this section you can see that it is on a ball joint, and that ball joint is able to move forward like so. But these pieces on the back have this little notch here, and that notch needs to fit underneath this section, and as you can see, this piece just doesn't really have a whole lot of motion. So that's going to be the limit of motion that you're going to get with that part. Moving down to the waist, this is one section that I think is done really, really nicely. There is, just like the shoulder, a little bit of rotation there at the hip, but what makes the hips really nice is that they are able to separate a bit from the body. This peg that's inside, pull off one leg, this peg folds up and down, so you're able to bring the hip out away from the body a little bit, and that's going to give you much more range of motion frontwards. There goes one of the hands. So just as a comparison, here's one without pulling the hip away. When you try to move it forward, that's going to be about the limit there, like barely perpendicular with the body. But on this one, if we pull it down and out first, it's going to go all the way up like that. So basically you could do something like that, and yeah, you can do some pretty crazy poses with those legs being able to move so high up like that. So let's move down to the knee, and as you can see, the knee does have a double joint and it is able to go almost 180 degrees, basically as much as it's going to go. But as you can see, we do get this front piece of the thigh armor does slide down a bit, revealing that little bit of black. It's not exactly inner frame, but sort of inner black parts. And then the knee does separate a bit as well. You can see when it's straight, and then when it's bent, that knee armor does separate a little bit as well. Moving down to the ankles, they're not great, but not bad. There's not really any back movement at all. They can't point down at all, which is very disappointing. I like, especially when a suit is up on a base, you want to be able to point the toes down, but not going to be able to do that with this. There is a little bit of toe movement in the toe there, and the ankle is able to move forward about that much. That's pretty good, especially if you're doing like kneeling or running poses. But for just kind of floating up on a base, the feet are just going to be flat, and that just doesn't really look all that good. So as you could see, there were limits to the articulation, but there is definitely a lot that you can do with it. Here's a pretty dynamic running and or lunging pose. If you have it up on a base, you can make it look like it's running, but for now it's just lunging. Something just fell. Anyway, there's not a whole lot of Gundam kits that you're going to be able to do a pose like this with. And one thing I realized now that I forgot to check is how wide the legs can go. Without pulling out the hips, that's going to be about the limit of it. But once again, if we pull out those hips a bit, we're going to get a little bit of a wider stance, but that's going to be about the limit. The ankles don't really have a whole lot of sideways motion, so I don't think we're going to be able to get them flat at this extreme angle. No, not quite. Have to bring them to about here. That is the limit of being able to keep the feet flat on the ground. Even still, that's not bad. And let me bring the camera up a bit here. You can see it's still pretty nice. So the one thing that I did want to mention about the construction of this kit, one pointer that will be helpful for you guys snapping this kit together. Some of the pieces that are like sandwiched together, for instance the arms or just some of the armor parts, anywhere basically where it's going to be a peg, a male into female peg connection, make sure that you squeeze that part really, really tightly, because just snapping it together, it'll go together fine, but there's still going to be a little bit of a gap. And don't worry, the part will fit together pretty flushly. You just have to press it really hard just to get that final little and then it'll be really secure. One thing about that is that just make sure if you are planning to paint the kit, planning to take it apart again, just make sure you cut your pegs before you do that, or just be prepared to break some pegs when you pull it apart, or just don't press it together so firmly in your initial snap up. One other thing, speaking on the seam lines, as you can see there are some seam lines that I would kind of like to get rid of, and they probably aren't going to be the easiest to get rid of, especially on this front crotch piece, this one section here in the stomach. If all of these sections had that seam, I could live with that, or if they all didn't have it, they would actually be better. So anyway, I just kind of wish that the design of this was a little bit different so that they were all the same. Anyway, one seam line there in the center, one there. The arms, seams on the arms, seams on the upper arms as well. The legs are pretty much okay. These seams on the front part of the leg here, just this section, and then on the back, kind of these shouldn't be too bad to get rid of. This one going all the way down the back of the lower leg. Anyway, shouldn't be anything too serious there. But now let's talk about the accessories. Let's see, the first thing let's talk about is these, which are the RS hoppers. They're actually these little bits here at the top are they're similar to in Gundam what we would call funnels, and these are stored in the shoulders there, but of course not on the kit, just the unit in the anime. These come out and fly around. Here is with the effect part attached on there, and as you can see these are all clear. You will have to paint those, and these are just attached to rods, so we get a shorter one and a longer one, so you can kind of vary your posing of them. And there's the effect part. Let's see if I can pull it off there. The effect part, it just fits on there. There is some dedicated slots. It's really hard to see. So anyway, once that's in on there, that looks pretty cool. And then we do have the base part where this will just plug in like so, and then that can just be standing like that. Now there are 4 of these. There's the other 3 still on the runner. I haven't cut them out yet. And the way the base is designed, if you can see, it's similar to an action base where we've got kind of a male adaptation point there and a female point there. So these bases are able to hook together if you wanted to. I think if you're going to be displaying them, you're probably going to be having them a little bit separated. But if you wanted to have them right next to each other, they are able to attach together. So if you count those, we have 4 bases. There's going to be 8 rods, but then only 4 effect parts. So if you want to have them actually mounted with an effect, there's only going to be 4 of them. Next we have these units that go onto the shoulders. These are actually where the RS hoppers are stored. And what you have to do basically is you're just going to pull off this back part. You can see you just pull that off and then replace it with this piece. And that fits into there like so. And then you've got that on the shoulder. Now obviously this is going to add a little bit more weight to the shoulder, so it's going to be, because that's loose, like I mentioned, it's going to be a little bit harder to keep in place, but it does stay in there pretty well. Now next we have the secondary arms. Now if you've seen the film, then you know that basically one feature of this Evangelion is that this chest part here is actually the housing for a secondary set of arms. So basically this is meant to open up and then the second set of arms come out, but for the kit basically we're going to have to just switch these parts. So it's fairly easy. And that usually happens. We usually have to pull that off, but that's okay. basically this whole front chest piece we're just going to pull off like so, and we'll just put that aside, and then the alternative one, we'll just plug it in, press that in firmly, and we can attach it back to the body. Now, as you may have heard, when I snapped that chest piece in, a tiny part fell to the floor. What that was this tiny little red piece in there. You can see that one is there and this one's missing. I've got it here in my hand. It's super tiny. So just make sure that this is definitely going to be a piece that's going to be very easy to lose. Just make sure you keep track of it very carefully. So I pop that back in. There you go. Now you can see. Now the second arms are in place there. It's very cool. The big problem about these arms though is that they just do not want to stay in the chest for anything. There you can see I barely moved it and it just popped right out. There's these just fit in via this ball joint, but there's no poly cap or anything like that to really hold these arms in there very well. The ball joint just kind of rests in there, and then that's pretty much it. But just as soon as you start moving it around, it's gonna come out just with this little bit of movement. These arms, in terms of their articulation, are basically exactly the same as these. We're getting a little bit of rotation at the top, and just a single joint in the elbow, and then double joint at the wrist. And once again, the same problem with the hands not really being all that secure on the wrist ball joints. As you can see, they pop off very easily. I found that these ones are a little bit more secure than the main arms, but they're still not totally secure. Alright, so because it does have 4 arms, there is no shortage of hands. As you can see on the main hands, on the main arms, I guess, I've got some closed fists on there now. And then on the sub-arms or secondary arms, then I've just got some just basic kind of resting open hands. The difference in the hands is going to be that on the main arms, the knuckles have a little bit kind of like spikes on the knuckles, and the secondary arms are just kind of very plain, very human-like hands. For the main arms, we also have a pair of just open resting hands. We've got a pair of open kind of either grasping or just kind of intense hands, we'll say. And then we've got a pair of holding hands. For the secondary arms, we've also got another set of intense hands, and then a set of holding hands. So no closed fists for the secondary arms, so that makes 4 sets for the main arms, 3 sets for the secondary arms. That is a total of 7 sets of hands times 2. That's 14 hands we're getting with this kit. As you can see, it's a lot of hands. The next thing is going to be an alternate kind of butt plate that has a hole in it. If you look on the back, this is just the standard one I've got there. You can switch it out for this one, so you're able to mount it on a base. Very disappointing that this doesn't come with a base. I think this is, especially with the last weapons that we'll get to here in a minute, this is the kind of thing that really needs to be on a base, I think. And the fact that we get the connector, but no base is very disappointing. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use a normal action base 1, just using the peg connection, and the peg is a little bit loose on this, so I've just got a little bit of tape on that as well. Let's see how easy it is to switch out this piece on the back. Pretty simple. Pop that new one on, and we'll just press that well enough onto there. You are going to need a different action base, or at least a different connector, but this one is going to work for the review, at least I hope. Well, I'm sorry guys, after fiddling with it, I think this connector is just not going to work, and I don't have any other kind of action base that we can use this. It's kind of on there, but as soon as I move it, it's just gonna go falling off. So sorry to say we're not going to be able to use that. We'll at least just be able to rest it against there for now, because the last accessory that this is going to come with is, of course, the Lance of Longinus, or as it might be called, the Spear of Longinus. And that is this thing, which is huge. Let me move my camera back. And here is the full length of that. It's very long and very floppy, as you can see, because it's just very thin. It's basically just 3 pieces, 2 different pieces there, and then this one long handle piece just connects there in the center. And just like in the film, we are going to be getting 2 of these. So these are super long. If you look at the tips of them, on this one they line up pretty well, but on this one mine are a little bit misaligned, so I'll have to do something about that to fix those. We do also get this really small connection piece. So basically, if you take off the handles on each of these, you're able to connect the handles together to just make a straight spear, like so. So then you've got just a spear like that you can use as well. Okay, so I've switched out the hands for the holding hands, and all it is just as simple as sliding this in, like so. Now, like I said, one problem of this kit is that those wrists are kind of weak, so it's gonna have a little bit of trouble, because these spears or lances are very thin, but of course just due to their size they're a little bit heavy. So there's one, and then we'll put this other one in as well. And it took a little bit of work, but there it is, holding both of the lances. Now, as you can see, it doesn't really look how it's supposed to, but without a base, that's basically the best I can do. And plus, like I said, just the loose wrists and these loose secondary arms are just a huge problem for this kit. Overall, I think the kit itself looks amazing. I think it totally captures how it's supposed to look in the anime, but just the kit just has a lot of problems. With a little work, I think these are all problems that could definitely be cleared up. But if you're the kind of person that is just going to be snapping the kit and then wanting to do some cool poses with it, you are going to have some trouble. I think just be prepared to do a little bit of work to be able to do, like, especially the kind of poses that you see in the photos of the kit. Alright guys, final thoughts. I think another thing that you have to consider if you're thinking about getting this kit is just the price. The kit is not cheap. I think the retail price is more than 8,000 yen. I think HLJ sells it for somewhere around 7,000 yen. I was lucky enough to get it at a pre-owned shop in Japan, and it cost me about 5,500 yen, 59 after tax. So it's basically like 50 bucks. That's a lot, and if it was really worth it, I don't know, because number one, this doesn't come with a base. That's a big problem. And it doesn't come with any kind of decals or markings at all. No, it doesn't really need them because it doesn't really have them in the anime. Basically every small color app that it's supposed to have, it pretty much has, so that's pretty good. But just maybe at least 1 or 2 marking, like water slides for the shoulders or arms, something like that, at least as options, would have been nice. So that, and just how difficult the hands and the secondary arms and those shoulders can be when you're trying to pose this kit. The ankles as well, just the limited articulation in the ankles is very disappointing. So definitely this is a kit that is far from perfect and definitely questionable as to if it's worth the price. Basically what it comes down to is how big of a fan you are of the series. Now, like I said, I'm a huge fan of the series, so for me, the price is kind of justified just in that, because it is a really awesome looking kit. When it is totally finished up, it is going to look really awesome on the shelf, especially with those huge lances. It's definitely going to demand a lot of attention. Let me move this back just so you can even get the full grasp of this. These are absolutely huge. And speaking on the size, why don't we take a minute to have a little size comparison. This is just the first kit that I've got here on hand. This is a Master Grade Full Armor Unicorn. As you can see, the Evangelion itself is a little bit shorter, but I just want you to at least be able to get an idea of how long those lances are. They're really, really long. So yeah, I think this review is probably a little bit long. Sorry about that, you guys. There was a little bit, kind of a lot to cover, and because it's quite different from what we're usually looking at Gundam kits, so I just wanted to cover this kit very thoroughly just to give you guys a really good idea about what to expect if this is something that you're looking to buy. That's it for the review. Just speaking on the movie now. The movie itself, I saw it in the theater when it first came out because I was living in Japan at that time. So I was really glad to be able to see it in the theater. But I was also a little bit disappointed. I left the theater thinking, what just happened and what did Anno do to the story? What is going on? Of course, there was also the added problem that I can't understand Japanese 100%, so I really only caught bits and pieces of the dialogue. But I mean, I could basically follow what was going on, but with something as complicated as the Evangelion story is, you definitely need to get all the dialogue to pick up on everything that's going on. But so I was just kind of a little bit confused and didn't really know what to think of it. I didn't like it at first. I just thought it was way too different. I didn't know what the heck was going on with everything. I hated that ship, why it was like a whale ship using the EVA 01's core as its engine. It just didn't really make sense. And the moment that they said on screen that it was a dual entry system, that I definitely caught because they used like Nihonglish and I could just very easily understand that. The moment they said dual entry system for this particular unit, I just thought like, what? I really like Kaoru's character, but I didn't want to see him getting into an EVA with Shinji. I don't know. Anyway, my point is that later when I watched the film again, after kind of I was able to think about it a little bit more, and like I even read some stuff online, read what some other people thought and some other people's kind of analysis of what was going on and kind of what they thought Anno was trying to do with the story. When I watched it again a second and third and fourth time, I really have grown to like it a lot now. There's still certain aspects of it that I don't really like. I still don't really like the whale ship. I still don't really like that when EVA 02 transforms into its beast mode again, it turns into like a cat basically. That looks really stupid. I loved it in the second movie when it transformed into that beast mode. The first time when Mari was piloting it, that was just really awesome. Probably the best part of the second rebuild movie. But when it turned into a cat in the third film, I was just like, what is going on? It was like some weird cat, saber-toothed tiger. It was really dumb. I hated that, and that I still don't like that. And basically, my favorite, probably one of my favorite moments of the 3.0 film is the very last scene when it's after all the action is finished, and Asuka comes and is pulling Shinji out of the entry plug, and Rei comes and finds them there, and they're just kind of like walking off to go find the others. I think how Asuka reacts to Shinji at that moment, I think really sets the tone for basically what Anno was trying to do with the story of the third film and what we can kind of expect in the fourth film, and how it's so very much different from what we saw in the original series. Now, as we know now, the rebuild movies are not a remake of the original series as much as they are sort of like a continuing of the same storyline in, I really don't even know how to describe it, sort of a, not exactly an alternate universe, just a kind of repeated history, I guess is what it is. And basically, this slight difference now that we're seeing at the end of the third film in Asuka and Shinji's relationship, Shinji is basically the same, just like pouting little twerp, but Asuka's reaction to him at that point is, I think, a moment of like hope in the story. How we should basically expect her to just want to kill him right on the spot, but she's like still got hope and like still trying to save him and still pulling him along. I don't know what's gonna happen in the fourth movie, other than the fact that they're splitting the two Evas together to make some sort of Frankenstein Eva, which I'm also not very happy about, but I don't know, I could change my mind. But I think the relationship between Shinji and Asuka in the fourth movie is going to be really, really interesting. I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with Rei, or at least the current clone of Rei, and what happened to Mari. I don't know. So what did you guys think? It's a really awesome series. I love it. I can't wait for the fourth movie to come out. Recently we saw that kind of digital short. I wasn't really a fan of that. It looked a little bit too much just like a fan-made or kind of like video game short little animation. It was not really very interesting for me, but the fourth film is something that I'm definitely looking forward to. I don't know if I'm gonna make the trip to Japan just to go watch in the theater, because the third film did actually play here in the theater in Korea as well, so I actually watched it twice in the theater because at that time I was still living in Japan, but I took a vacation here to Korea to come visit some friends, and it was playing here as well, so I watched it in the theater again. Still in Japanese with Korean subtitles, so still didn't really pick up a whole lot on the second viewing, but still liked it a little bit more. Anyway, so hopefully I'll be able to catch that in the cinema when it comes out here in Korea. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing what you guys think. What do you think about this kit? Is it something that looks interesting for you or not? I don't know. Let me know. Anyway, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you soon.